now that we've covered what is Forex and talked about some of the characteristics of the largest financial market in the world, we're going to move on to when can you trade Forex? And I got to say, this is one of the things that drew me to the Forex market when I was kind of exploring which vehicle I wanted to choose when I was starting to step into the world of trading. I absolutely love the fact that you could trade Forex anytime. The Forex market is essentially open 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. As you know, there's so many different time zones around the world. The banks come open or the markets come online and at the beginning of their day, and they close at the end of their day. And this causes the markets to overlap and essentially means that the Forex market doesn't close during the week. Now, again, for me, this was, extremely, appealing when I was looking at the different things, because I actually sometimes trade the London session and sometimes trade the New York session, and, absolutely like to trade the Asian session as well. So there were different aspects that were, again, for me personally, very appealing, because I did have some flexibility at my trading time. And actually when I had different projects, it was appealing for me to be able to switch maybe between one session and another session. The other thing that makes this really, really appealing is you're going to want to keep in mind what sessions are open when you're available to trade. If you're not available to trade until, say, if you work a full-time job, until after you get home at 5:30, you need to be aware of what session is open and active and predominant during that time. And the same thing if you're like, no, I have a full-time job and I trade before I go to work, so I get up at 4 a.m. and I trade. You need to know what session is active then. And part of that reason is there are certain pairs that those markets are open, like in their time zone, those banks are open, those brokers are operating. And so sometimes, depending on your trading strategy, depending on your trading style, depending on whether you're looking for momentum or what kind of setup you're looking for, that can be a huge piece of confluence for you to know and to keep in mind, not only when you're picking pairs, but what style of trading that you're looking for in the future. So in looking at this chart, I want to say that this chart is actually available on the website as a download for, I think it's a PNG or a JPEG for in its entirety, just alone on its graphic. But I also have this in your handout that you can use for following along and taking notes during the course. But this is so pivotal and something that you're going to want to memorize, remember, and look at. That I have this as a separate download just in case you want it. Now, if you look here at the bottom and you look, this is done in Eastern Standard Time. And what you see is that the London market comes open here at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it closes at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And during this time, the New York session comes open at 8 a.m. and then it's going to close at 5 p.m. And you have this overlap here between London and New York. And typically, not all the time, but typically in most markets, this is going to be the most volume that market has during the day. It's not with every single pair and every single day, but a lot of times you're going to have a lot more volume typically when different markets overlap versus when they don't. And so that's something to make note of. You have the Sydney session that opens up at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and closes at 2 a.m. And then the Asian session that opens up at 7 p.m. and the Asian session then closes at 4 a.m. You also have an overlap here between the London and the Asian session from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. And so there can be a push or some volume that enter into the market then as well. And so again, this is just a chart for your reference. It is something that you are going to look at for your entire trading journey and something that you want to keep in mind.